Hello, welcome to this webinar with EuroMaTech, all about writing winning business reports. I'm Joanne Sweeney, I'm your host, and I'm going to be with you for the next hour. So just a little bit to start with. So it's wonderful to have you with us. Please do share what you want to get from our hour together. So why have you joined this webinar? If there's one thing that you can get from this webinar, what would you like it to be? If you left with one thing, what would it be? Please do share in the chat. Hopefully you can access the chat, and then I will notice what you're writing and I'll respond as we go through the webinar. Please, if I say anything that's not clear or confusing, or you have any questions about what I say, please do write it in the chat, because if I'm not explaining clearly and you don't let me know, I won't understand and I'll continue doing it. So please, I want this to be as helpful and useful and relevant for you and your job as possible, and making it two-way and feeding back will really help me to do that. So let's begin, and I'm going to turn my camera off so you're not distracted and so you can hear me but not see me. Please, if for any reason you lose sound, do let us know. So this is me. I am a marketing, PR and communications expert, and I focus on consultancy, on mentoring and training, and I deliver training for EuroMaTech around the world. And that's training that's both in-house and open courses. So typically I advise large companies in my role as consultant and mentor, large companies on how to communicate effectively with their key audiences. And those could be internal or external. You can see that I have got academic and professional qualifications. I'm a chartered marketer, and also a fellow of the Institute of Marketing in the UK and the Institute of Internal Communications. I'm a UK trustee for a Nigerian charity responsible for fundraising. I have 3 children, 1 cat, 1 husband. My children, 2 of them live in New Zealand, the 3rd lives in London where we live, but about an hour and a half's drive away. And you can see I've got lots of interests, so I have lots to do outside work. So let's begin by thinking about the different types of business reports. So here is a list. It is by no means comprehensive. I'm sure there are reports that you're involved in that aren't in this list. And you know, if you've got any to add, please add them in the chat box. That will be great to see. So let's have a quick look at them. And I think also if there are any that you're not familiar with, you just say so in the chat box as well, and I can give a little overview if you want me to. So business cases, where we're creating a case for the business to do a new investment in some area. It could be operations, it could be manufacturing, it could be new products, new marketing, distribution, huge range of different areas. Proposals, bids and tenders, that's all about winning new business from customers and clients. Business planning, so annual business planning, but also business planning for specific periods. Business continuity, thanks James. Hi Alice. So progress reports, completion reports. So progress and completion are often to do with programs and projects. Compliance report, how what we're doing is complying with either national or international legislation and regulation, or compliance standards within our industry or within our own organization. After action reviews, where we look back at what happened, what did we expect to happen versus what happened, what worked, what didn't work, what's the learning for the future. Finance reports, all those numbers. Production analysis, so how the production's working. White papers, case studies, annual report and accounts. Customer surveys, You could also have employee surveys, research reports, sales reports, inventory reports, and business continuity plans as well. So that's all about, so I haven't got anything here about crisis management. So thanks for that reminder, James. But within crisis management, there are a number of different reports that we would do, you know, recovery reports, continuity plans, yeah, loads of different things. And I'm not going to go into the details about business continuity planning. It is something I do with my clients as part of crisis management and crisis communications. It's quite specific type of planning, but absolutely crucial. And we do cover it. We do have a crisis management course. EuroMaTech has at least one, and we will cover continuity planning in that training. So the starting point for any report that we write, and any plan as well, is why are we writing it? We need to be absolutely clear about our purpose if we're to achieve that purpose. If we don't know why we're doing something, we've got no chance of achieving it. So do we want to secure investment? It might be extra people, more time, more money, or resources. Do we want to win and keep executive support and involvement? Do we want to increase awareness and understanding? So this is the cognitive. So in marketing, we talk about cognitive objectives, and that's what people know in their head. And then if you go two down, I'm saying, do we want to change attitudes that might be negative to positive or neutral to positive? And that is where we're changing people's feelings, changing their hearts, and that is called in marketing effective. And so in psychology it's called effective, and it's marketing, it's called favorability. And the increasing awareness and understanding, that is cognitive in psychology, and in marketing it's familiarity. And then the third one, do we want to change behaviors? And that's behavioral in both marketing and psychology. Do we want to get a decision? Do we want to demonstrate achievements? Do we want to gain recognition and reward for ourselves or our teams? And there's lots of different ways of getting recognition and reward. And again, we need to be clear on what we want and whether it's possible. The reason I'm highlighting these and spending a bit of time on this is the starting point for any report. And if we don't know what the purpose is, we are wasting our time writing the report and doing all the work that's required. Otherwise, we're just creating a stack of papers that are going to sit on a shelf in a cupboard with the door shut, and no one's ever going to look at them, no one's ever going to read them or do anything about them. And it might be that in your job you just have to do that and you've got no choice. But if you can, if you feel like that's what you're required to do in your role because you've just been told to write a report, then hopefully if you apply what we cover in the next hour, it may help you improve your report so that you do get an outcome rather than just sitting in a shelf. I'm going to ask you to participate in a couple of polls. So here is the first one. So what I'd like you to do is to have a look through and choose the main reason that you are writing your business report. It might be a report that you're writing now, one that you're about to start, or one that you've just finished. And you'll see you're only able to choose one option, but please go ahead and choose the main reason that you believe you are writing your report. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do it. So hopefully these all make sense, and that if you're not sure about why you're writing your business report, then if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see other, then choose other. This is not a trick question. There is no right or wrong answer, and no one else will see what you've written. I'll give you another half a minute just to give you a final chance. Okay, I'm going to end the voting now and let you see the results. And what you should see, hopefully you can see the results, and what you can see is that we have got lots of different reasons for writing our business reports, and it's likely that the reason you have for this report, you'll have a different reason for your next report. There is no right and wrong for our reasons. Just before we move on, I'm going to answer Alice's question. Alice, thank you for what you've said. So we are not looking at technical reports this afternoon because we covered them this morning in a webinar, Alice, and I talked in detail about writing good, clear technical reports. The webinar will be up on the EuroMaTech website, and EuroMaTech, Vijay, can you share the link to the webinar with this group once it's loaded, please, just so that everybody can go in and listen in on the technical report writing webinar that we had this morning. Thank you. And Abid, welcome. So let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so hopefully you've seen that there are a wide range of purposes, and really my point is for you to really be clear about why you're writing. So the second thing that we need to understand before we start writing is who we are writing for. And here you can see that there are a huge range of audience. So on the left are external audiences, and on the right are internal audiences. And this is just a selection to give you a flavour for how different the audiences can be. When I talk about audiences, I don't mean readers, because our report can be read by a huge range of people, and we're not going to know who's going to read our report. It might sit in a paper copy in a library. It might sit in our intranet library, and pretty much anybody in the company can access it. If we send it externally, then we're really increasing the number of people who might read it. So when I'm talking about audiences, these are the people that you absolutely want to read the report. And again, before you start writing and doing any research, you need to be clear about who they are. And hopefully you'd have a short list, maybe 3 to 5 of these groups at a maximum. If you have any more, you're going to have a really complicated audience. It's going to be difficult to write for them because they're going to have such different needs. So I've not done a poll on this just because there are so many options and so many options that aren't in my list. I've done this list to get you thinking. So perhaps you could find a piece of paper or on your tablet or on your phone and just list which of these audiences are the key audiences for the current report business document that you're working on. And again, if you struggle to do this, to work out who this is, just as you might struggle to work out what the purpose is because someone else has told you to write the report, then go back to that person and ask them, you know, why am I writing this report? What do you want the report to achieve? And who do you most want to read it? And if that person can't answer, then they need to go further up the chain and ask, because otherwise they're just doing what someone has told them to do. And the person who ultimately wants your report is going to be dissatisfied and annoyed and frustrated and have a poor opinion of you if the report you write doesn't deliver what they expect. So the next thing is to think about what sections your audiences are most interested in. So these are the main sections of a generic business report. We're going to look at 4 different types of report in detail and see how much they differ, but these are some generics. So let's have another poll. And this time, what I would like you to do is choose the section that you believe your key audiences are most interested in. So the audiences that you've just written down, you know, as I asked you to, on the piece of paper, on your tablet, on your mobile phone. And this time you can choose more than one section. Brilliant. Thank you for responding so quickly. I'll give you another half a minute just to choose the sections that your audiences are most interested in. Right. Has everybody had a chance to choose their section? If you haven't done so, can you do so now, as I am about to end the voting? And I'll say, Aboud, thank you for sharing your goals for being in our webinar today. Okay, I'm going to end the voting now and share the results with you. And you can see that the executive summary, the recommendations and action plans are what's important to most people. Let's go back now to the presentation. So now that we have thought about what's purpose, what sections are they interested in, who our audiences are, we're now going to look at the key ways to improve business reports. So we can improve the words and the images, which is the content. We can improve the design and layout, which is what our report looks like. We can improve how we distribute to key audiences, and we can improve how we ensure that they read what we've written and respond in the way we want them to respond. So we're going to look at number 2, design and layout, in this webinar. This morning in our webinar, we looked at words and images and applying them to technical reports. So if you are also interested in the words and images, then please do listen in to the recording of that webinar. So EuroMaTech will share the link in the chat so that you can click on it and go and see it. So you're welcome to listen in and watch the webinar from this morning. So let's move on. So what we're now going to do is look at the structure for the 4 key types of business report that we are likely to write. The first one is proposals, bids and tenders, and this is all about winning work from customers and clients. And what you will, so this is the first half. I've got 2 slides on this. What you'll see is that it's turned on its head. So it's all about our customer, our client. It's not about us. So what we start with is, what is the issue they've got, the result that they want, the objectives that they want to achieve with whatever we provide. So our whole proposal, our whole bid, our whole tender is focused around them and the issue that they are willing to pay to have resolved. And within organizations, so all organizations have a wide range of issues that they want to get solved. The business will only be willing to pay to have some of them resolved. And so what we need to do, if they're going to buy from us, they have to be willing to pay to have the issue solved and willing to pay us. So there's no point in doing a proposal if they're not actually going to put money in its resolution. And the other point of this particular first bit is to show that we understand their business issue and our purpose is to serve them in resolving it. So then we talk about who their key audiences are. So who are their key audiences that they need to serve with this issue? So if it's a financial issue, it's probably going to be their shareholders, maybe the institutions that lend their business money. If it is an internal system that is not serving employees anymore, then it will be specific groups of employees plus senior executives. And then we talk about, so then the next section down is we talk about their current situation. And here we really hammer on about the pain points, the pain that they are experiencing. So, perhaps their revenues are dropping, perhaps their costs are going up, their profits are dropping, their staff are becoming demotivated, they're losing clients, all sorts of issues. Maybe their brand is suffering and their reputation. So what are the pain points that they're experiencing at the moment that we can help resolve? And then we speak about their specific needs. So you see the first 4 sections are all about them, not about us. And too many organizations, when they sell, the first thing they say is, hey, look at this, we're the biggest and we're the best, and we're going to sell you a box. And our customers don't care how big we are. They don't care that we think we're the best. They don't care about buying boxes from us. What they're interested in is a solution to their problem. And next, we talk about what we're offering. So what are we offering and how does it benefit them? So you can see, even when we talk about the offering, we're still talking about the benefits for them, not about how wonderful our offering is. Now we're on to timelines. So what are the timelines? And these may be their timelines or our timelines. What's ever relevant. It might be, you know, we can deliver within these dates. Our costs hold for this time scale. You know, we're available to start on X date, which is the date when you want us to start. And then we talk about their investment. So when I'm selling to clients, I don't say this is how much I'm charging. I say this is how much you're investing. And the language changes the mindset. So it's going to cost you loads of money is a pain point. You're going to make an investment of X is a positive message. And then the call to action. So I've told you what we're going to offer. We've told you what your investment is going to be. This is the decision you need to make now. And typically for me, when I'm doing this call to action, it might be have a conversation. Let's talk in detail. Let me come along and present in person. Make a decision and issue a purchase order by X date. It could be, the call to action could be a lot of different things, but there needs to be a next step that the client needs to take, or the prospective client needs to take, so that we know that they are committed to negotiating with us and to progressing this discussion. And then lastly, we talk about ourselves. So who is the team who will be serving them, and what are our credentials? And credentials are what we've done before for other people. You know, how we've delivered this, what's our credibility? So please do, if you've got any questions about what I'm saying, please do put them in the chat and I will respond, because I'm imagining that what I've just said is a completely turn it on your head way that you and your organization do proposals and bids and tenders. So please do, if you've got any questions, please do ask. So that is one type of business document that we produce on a regular basis. Let's look at the next one. So these are business cases. This is a typical structure for a business case, and this is the order in which I recommend them and in which I do them. Again, I may be turning it on its head. And again, all my reason for putting documents and structuring them in this order is because I'm structuring the sections in the order in which my key stakeholders are interested. So the one that I believe my key stakeholders are most interested in comes first. And I recommend that that's what you do as well. So it might be that you look through this and say, well, actually, my key stakeholders would have, have different interests. So put them in the interests of your stakeholders. And it's the most important stakeholders for you. So business case, first of all, we're going to do, these are the recommendations that we are making for the business. So when I do recommendations, thanks, James. So that may be true, but even if they say that, so James has said some companies, some clients have preferred formats that may not follow these structures. Even if that's true, ignore what they say if it's not in the order of what's most important to the key stakeholders within that organization. Because I think that's absolutely true, but a lot of the time their preferred formats are institutionalized. It's just always been that way, and no one has thought about whether it's the best way. You won't lose business for changing the structure, but you will lose business if they don't read what you've written. And then you have to say, what's more important, following their structure or getting the work or getting the decision? So when I do recommendations, typically I do no more than 12 12 is the maximum I would ever put into a document, even if I've got more. So I would just drop the remainder. And then I also typically put the recommendations in 3 different ways. So the first way will be the quick and easy way. So do them in this order, and it's quick and easy, but you won't necessarily get high impact. I'd also put them in the order of high impact but difficult. So if you do them in this order, you'll have the biggest impact quickly, but it's going to be hard to do. And then I have a middle of the road way. And what that does, so it's a very clever way of doing recommendations, because what then happens is people then argue about the order that the recommendations are going to be done in rather than the recommendations themselves. So it just changes the discussion. So I do this with my clients all the time, and people don't realize that they're not debating, should we do this or not? It's what order should we do them in? And it's just a much more constructive debate and discussion. And then, of course, the executive summary. The executive summary needs to be written for executives. It needs to be structured. It needs to be structured in what's called the inverted pyramid structure, which we discussed this morning. So if you want to know about it, do listen in on that webinar. And it needs to be written for your executives. It should be no more than 1 page, because they won't read any more than a page. Then you talk about the current situation. So what is happening now that means things need to change? Because effectively a business case is a proposal for some sort of change in your business. Then we talk about the options. You know, these are the options. You should always have more than, well, at least 3 options. And then you talk about the risks and benefits of each option, the financial impact of each option, and the financial impact is always costs versus revenues and profits. Then outline the approach that you are recommending, and then talk about how to engage. If the organization does go for this approach, how you're going to engage stakeholders and communicate what's happening. Typical outline for a business case. And of course, in the recommendation is where you have the call to action. So that's a business case. Let's look at the 3rd type of document. And this is a business plan. And hopefully what you're seeing is just so far is how different the structure is for different types of business documents. So again, when I do a business plan, I always have the recommendations first. And the reason I do it is because I'm confident that even executives may not read beyond the recommendations. They may not get to the summary, and I'm not confident that they'll read any further. And I find that with business plans as well. So often with my clients, when I'm doing plans, not only do I do a plan in writing following this outline with lots of pages, but I also do a PowerPoint presentation with lots of color that summarizes the key things, because I know that they're not going to read it. They're going to skim read it and miss so much detail. So anyway, the recommendations come first. I may not stick to the 12 recommendations. I may do. I may or may not do them in the 3 different presentations. It really depends on my client. But also this time I may be in control of implementing those recommendations. And then we've got the summary. Then I do a business audit. So the audit looks at the external and the internal environments, what is happening externally in the business, what is happening internally, how does this affect what we should do in the future. Then I set out the purpose, the goals, and the objectives for the plan. Very specific, absolutely measurable for the objectives. And I'm looking for the people who sign the plan off to sign off those objectives. Then I talk about who the key audiences are. I talk about what capabilities and resources we have internally, what's missing, and if there are some missing, how do we go externally to to fill those capabilities. And typically when you go externally, it's all about finding temporary staff to come in and fulfill a role on a temporary basis, finding an agency contractor to come in, or finding a consultant. Those are the typical choices. And of course, it's all about budget. Then we'll talk about what the strategy is. From the strategy, we'll develop outline tactical action plans. And then the final bit is how we're going to monitor and control the strategy and the action plans. So, James, that's an interesting question. I would say that the audience changes with every business plan. And I've also found with every client, because I do business plans for a wide range of clients, and sometimes the audience is internal, sometimes it's external, but it's always bespoke to the business and to the particular type of plan. So I might do a business plan for new product launch, or a marketing plan, or an employee communications plan, or a PR plan, business strategy plan. They're all quite different. And I would say I'm giving you an overview for a generic plan, but it might be that you drop some of these headings, or you have other headings that are specific to your plan. So yeah, not set in stone. Thank you. So the next one is research reports. I do a lot of research reports for my clients. So sometimes I do them for clients and they are going to sell the report to their customers. Sometimes I do it as an annual or a quarterly. For one of my customers, I do this on every second year, and it's looking at their customers. So it's a research report into what do their customers feel about their business. And or else it might be that, you know, my client wants to develop their website, and so we'll do a research into what's happening now and what their customers expect of how their customers use the website, what the competitors are doing. Lots of different types of reports, but pretty much all following this structure when I do the report. So again, I begin with the recommendations. I then have an executive summary. I go into the background, you know, why do they need to change? So the background is always, you know, what is happening in the business now? Why do things need to change? And then I'll talk about the key findings. So when I do research reports, you know, we'll have a huge amount of data which we have interrogated. I do not put everything that we have found into the findings. I only put the things that I believe the client needs to pay attention to, because otherwise I'm just giving them too much information. So I tell them what the key findings are and what it means for them. And then I say, these are my conclusions. So the conclusions are my opinion and my recommendations. So the recommendations come from the conclusions. Then the methodology, then about the author. So in research reports, I consider the about the author really, really key. It's all about proving the professionalism and the expertise of the author, so that everybody reading the report trusts the content of the report, trusts the findings, trusts the conclusions, trusts the recommendations. And then there are the appendices and the acknowledgements and whatever else you want to put in. So I've talked about sort of the 4 key types of report, and that was what I was planning on covering in this call. Are there any other types of reports that you were hoping we would talk about that I haven't talked about? Please, if there are, could you share them in the chat now and we can have a quick discussion about them? I know, James, you talked about continuity plans before, and they are really complex. And I do them, and off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the structure. I would have to go and look at my notes and pull out the structure. But are there any other types of reports that you're really interested in. Okay, let me move on then. So if you do think of any, please just make a note in the chat and I'll come back. Okay, so that's for the 4 types of business report, and we looked at structure. Now we're going to look at the design and layout, what it looks like. The how you present it is absolutely key. How are you going to distribute it? So it might be that you print it and somehow or other get it into your audience's hands, or it might be that you create a PDF and you email it to them. And when you choose, don't choose on cost, choose on the way that is most likely to get your key audiences to open it and read it. That's more important than cost. So if you're going to print, who's going to print? Are you going to do it yourself in-house, or are you going to pay a company to do it? If you pay someone externally to do it, then you're adding to the timescale. Probably printing externally will probably take at least 2 weeks, maybe even more. Are you going to spiral bind it? Are you going to staple it? You know, how are you going to make sure the pages hold together if you print? How are you going to stick it in envelopes? What sort of envelopes? Where are you going to get addresses from? Are you going to send it to people in their homes? And you're probably going to have to do that while everyone's working from home. Or are you going to send it to them in their place of work? Do you have an up-to-date address? You know, how are you going to post it? Are you going to do it yourselves? Are you going to pay someone to do it? Have you got the budget for the postage? Generally, hard copy is better than soft copy. It's just something tactile and tangible that people can hold in their hands, unless you're going to pay a designer to create a beautifully designed PDF. Or you might be lucky and have someone in your company who can do that for you. But the key things to think about: design and layout. I've talked a little bit about design and layout. So the things in any sort of print, whether it's a business document, a newspaper, a magazine, the things that get people to read are the colored photos of people. And the most interesting thing about people is their eyes and their mouth. So if you're going to use people, have really clear faces, and, you know, think about how can I get a picture of people into my report. If you can put a picture of people on the front page of your report, you will significantly increase the readership. And of course, if you choose a picture of people, those people need to look like your key readers. So if your key readers are Saudi men 50 and over, then that's the picture you need to have on the front page. If they are South African women, business women in suits in the 20 to 30 age range, that's the picture that you need to have on your front page. It's amazing the difference it makes. Even if the link to the content of your report is quite intangible, still do it. And if a photo of people is really completely inappropriate, then have a color photo that summarizes the theme of your report, because photos communicate so much information, and they are what appeal to us visually more than anything else, even more than infographics and cartoons and all that sort of thing. Photos are just the most appealing visually. Then it's all about color. So have color in your report. Use columns. The ratio of white space to black text is very important. If you have too much black text on a page, people will look at it and they'll subconsciously say, I can't cope, there's too much here, it's going to be too hard for me to read and understand. I will put it aside and read it sometime, never, when I've got time. and you don't want them to do that. So be really aware of what your report looks like visually. Use images throughout the report. So now you can use graphics. So heads means headlines and subheadlines. And what they do is they break the text up. Definitely have a front page, have a table of contents. At the back, have your contact details so people can phone you or send you emails to ask anything that they're interested in. Make it interactive. Definitely date it so that people know when you've produced it. I would say have in the bottom footer, have details on every page. Page number, maybe author, topic, maybe date, whatever's most useful. But just make it as easy for people to make their way through your paper and to find the information that they're interested in. Editing and proofreading. So spelling, grammar, punctuation, make sure all that's correct. Make sure that there is nothing that is commercially sensitive. Make sure everything is accurate and consistent style. So red pen, if you ask someone to make changes, ask them to do it with what we call red pen, which you can do literally with a red pen if they're going through it, a hard copy, or it's red pen if they make the changes online, so that the changes are in red and they're really easy to spot. So please do ask any questions. I've gone through this quite quickly and more detail on editing and proofreading in our webinar this morning. And I've also talked about design, the specifics on design and layout this morning. Okay, still on content. So recipients, DMU stands for Decision Making Unit. It's a marketing term, and these bullet points underneath are a typical decision-making unit in any organization. So we've got the person who actually makes the decision, who may be very senior. And then we've got the approvers and the buyers, the people who implement. We've got the users, the people who are going to be using whatever we provide. Opinion formers and influencers who influence the decision maker. And gatekeepers who stop us making contact with the others. And as you write, be aware of who these people are, because there'll be specific individuals within your organization, and you need to be writing for them, but in different ways, because they'll be interested in different things. So the gatekeeper, once you're aware of who your decision makers are, then it's probably obvious who the gatekeepers are to them. And typically, you need a personal relationship with the gatekeeper. You need to phone them up and say, look, I'm sending this report for Mr. Joe Brown. Can you make sure he gets it, please, or she gets it? And if you've got that relationship, then you'll be able to get through that gatekeeper. If you are presenting your report orally, then follow the proposal structure. You remember that structure that we went through about proposals, bids, and tenders? Then use that as your structure for presenting. And that means that your presentation is all about them, not you. It's all about their issues and how you can help them resolve their issues. And if you start with that, you're going to have their attention. They're going to sit up and listen and ask you questions and interact and be really interested. Whereas if you start off talking about yourself, they're going to fall asleep. So that was everything that I was planning on covering during our hour together. So we've got 10 minutes for questions. So if you'd like to type your questions in, I will just talk about a little about these two programs that we've got coming up. So today we've looked at the structure for writing business reports. We're going to cover this in more detail, plus the other 3 areas that I talked about in the Advanced Business Writing Skills course. So we're delivering it virtually in a 3-day online course in October. and there is the link. Thank you, VJ. VJ has also put the links in the chat so that you can click on them. So you're very welcome to join us virtually if you're able. If you would prefer to join us face-to-face, then we're delivering this as a 5-day course in Dubai in November. The webinar that we covered this morning on technical report writing, we're also delivering that in much more detail as a 3-day virtual course in September. So you're very, very welcome to come on either or both these training courses. I'll be delivering both of them. It would be wonderful to see you. Please, if you want any more information, let EuroMaTech know and they will send you all the information, or you can go click the links and go and get all the detail from our website. Before we finish, do you have any more questions about technical report writing? I'll give you a couple of minutes just to type your questions in. Anything that I didn't cover that you were expecting me to cover, anything that was unclear or you'd just like more information about. Anything that you want me to go back and talk in a little bit more detail about. And also, so we've had a few questions earlier. Did I answer the questions that were asked earlier? Thank you, James. You're welcome, Garda. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Rabia. Thank you, Almunda. It was great having you, and thank you for your questions and your contributions. We've got a few more minutes before we're due to finish. Thank you, Ruth. You're welcome, Hisham. And Weezer, thank you. And Telma, thank you. So it looks like there are no more questions or anything, any queries that you have. Perhaps a particular issue you have with a report that you're writing at the moment. I'm happy to talk specifics if you have a report and you just want some guidance on that report. So this webinar, we're recording this webinar and it will be uploaded onto the EuroMaTech website. So you are very, very welcome to, once it's uploaded, to listen again and to share it with your colleagues. So it looks like there are no more questions, and there's nothing specific that you would like some input onto. So let us say thank you and goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining us.